The first thing Lena Marlowe heard beneath the villa was a woman whispering her name. Not loudly, not clearly, just a cracked breath through the basement darkness, carried under the scream of hurricane wind battering the steel shutters above. "Lena?" She froze with one hand on the forbidden door. Behind her, the private island villa groaned like something alive. Palm trees snapped outside. Rain hammered the marble walls. Somewhere above, an alarm pulsed red against white stone, turning the billionaire's mansion into a fever dream of wealth and danger. Nico Santoro had given her only one rule: do not go below the villa. He had said it calmly, almost gently, as if rules did not need volume when they came from a man like him. But the lower level had called to her all night. A locked elevator, a fingerprint scanner, 2 armed guards, medical supply deliveries with no patient name, a security camera that followed her every step. And then the power had failed. Now Lena stood barefoot in a corridor that smelled of salt water, antiseptic, and secrets, staring into a hidden medical suite that should not have existed. Inside, an older woman lay in a hospital bed beneath soft gold lamps. Not chained, not starved, not treated like trash. Treated like royalty. Silk blanket, fresh orchids, monitors humming on backup power, a silver-framed photograph on the nightstand, turned toward the woman's sleeping face. Lena stepped closer. Her stomach dropped. The woman in the bed had the same face as the woman in every old photograph throughout the villa. The woman laughing on a yacht with pearls at her throat. The woman dancing barefoot on this island 20 years ago. The woman standing beside a much younger Nico Santoro, his teenage face already cold with violence, his hand resting protectively near her shoulder. The woman the world believed had died in a fire. The woman who now opened her eyes and looked straight at Lena like she had waited a lifetime. "My daughter," she whispered. The storm slammed the villa so hard the lights flickered. Lena backed away, breath caught in her throat. Then a voice behind her cut through the alarms. "I told you not to come down here." She turned. Nico Santoro stood at the end of the basement corridor in a black shirt soaked from rain, a pistol loose in one hand, blood on his collar, and hurricane light flashing behind him. He looked neither surprised nor guilty, only devastated. Lena's voice shook. "Who is she?" Nico's dark eyes moved from Lena to the woman in the bed, then back. He did not deny it. He did not apologize. He only said, "I was protecting her from the same people now hunting you." 48 hours earlier, Lena had been trying to restart a dying heart in Trauma Bay 3 at Mercy General in Miami. The man on the table was 22, maybe 23, with a motorcycle helmet split down the side and rainwater still dripping from his jacket. His girlfriend stood outside the glass, screaming his name while a resident froze with the defibrillator paddles in his hands. "Charge to 200, Lena said, steady as stone. The resident blinked. Now. He listened because people always did when Lena spoke like that. Not because she was loud. Because she had learned that fear moved faster when given something to hold on to. The heart monitor screamed. Lena leaned over the young man, pressing her gloved hands to his chest, as if she could command his body back from the edge. "Come on," she whispered. "You don't get to leave her like this." The shock hit. His body lifted. A beat passed. Then another. The monitor caught a rhythm. The girlfriend outside collapsed into sobs. Lena let herself breathe. For 3 seconds, she felt the small, private relief that came when death stepped back. Then her phone vibrated in her scrub pocket. She ignored it until the patient was stable. The attending took over, and the doors closed behind the boy, who would live to hear the story of the night he almost didn't. Only then did she check the message. It was from her mother. Bank called again. "They won't extend. I'm sorry, mija." Lena stared at the words until the fluorescent lights blurred. Her mother, Rosa Marlowe, had spent 30 years cleaning hotel rooms and rich people's kitchens across Miami Beach. She had raised Lena in a little coral pink house with a cracked driveway, a mango tree, and hurricane shutters that never closed quite right. It was not much to the bank. It was everything to them. Medical bills had eaten their savings. Insurance had denied what it could. Interest had done the rest. Lena was 29, exhausted, overqualified, underpaid, and one missed payment away from losing the only place in the world where she had ever felt safe. At 2 in the morning, after a 12-hour shift turned 16, she found the envelope in her locker. Cream paper, no return address. Inside was a contract, private medical assignment, 7 days, confidential recovery case, Caribbean location, trauma nurse required, payment wired in advance. The number at the bottom made her sit down. It was enough to save the house, enough to cover Rosa's medication for a year, enough to make desperation look like destiny. There was only one name on the final page, Santoro Holdings. Every nurse in Miami knew stories about men like the Santoros. Not facts, exactly. Facts were dangerous. But stories. Politicians photographed beside them and later denied knowing them. Judges retired early after cases vanished. Luxury hotels changed ownership overnight. Cargo ships delayed by federal inspection somehow sailed untouched before sunrise. Nico Santoro was the kind of man no one accused aloud. Lena should have thrown the contract away. Instead, she went home at dawn to find her mother sleeping in the recliner with an oxygen tube under her nose and foreclosure papers on the kitchen table. Rosa opened her eyes when Lena touched her shoulder. "You look like your heart is carrying stones," Rosa murmured. Lena forced a smile. "Only little ones, mija." That one word could still break her. Lena sat on the floor beside her mother's chair and rested her head against Rosa's knee like she had when she was small. "I got an offer," she said carefully. "Private nursing. 1 week. It pays enough." Rosa's hand stilled in Lena's hair. Enough for what? For everything. The silence that followed was not relief. It was fear taking its time. Private nursing for who? Lena looked toward the kitchen window, where dawn painted the mango leaves gold. A wealthy patient. Rosa knew her too well. That is not an answer. It's confidential. Then it is dangerous. Everything is dangerous when you're poor. Rosa closed her eyes. For a moment, Lena thought she was praying. Then her mother whispered, "Some doors do not open because you have a key. Some doors open because someone wants you inside." Lena looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" Rosa's face changed. Something old moved behind her eyes, then disappeared. "It means be careful," she said. By noon, a black SUV arrived outside the little pink house. It did not honk. It simply waited. The driver was a clean-shaven man with an earpiece and a suit too expensive for the heat. He took Lena's small suitcase, scanned the street once, then opened the back door. Inside the SUV sat a woman in a white blazer. "Ms. Marlowe," she said. "I'm Camille Voss, Mr. Santoro's legal physician coordinator." "That sounds made up," Camille smiled without warmth. "Most useful titles are." Lena slid into the car. "Who is the patient?" "You'll be briefed on arrival." "What's the diagnosis?" "Complicated recovery after trauma." "What kind of trauma?" Camille looked at her. "The kind that requires discretion." Lena almost got back out. Then she saw her mother standing in the window, thin hand pressed to the glass, pretending not to be afraid. Lena buckled her seatbelt. The drive ended at a private air terminal, where a white jet waited under a sky heavy with thunder. No logos, no unnecessary staff. Just quiet money and armed men who pretended not to be armed. During the flight, Camille handed Lena a non-disclosure agreement thick enough to stop a bullet. "No phones beyond the arrival dock," she said. "No unauthorized communication, no photos, no questions unrelated to patient care. I ask questions for a living." "Then ask careful ones," Lena signed, because the first half of the payment had already appeared in her bank account. By sunset, the jet descended over the Caribbean. The island rose out of dark blue water, like something owned by a villain in an expensive movie. Black cliffs, white villa, terraced gardens. A private dock lit by amber lanterns. Farther inland, the green blur of palms bent under the first breath of an approaching storm. St. Verena Island. Camille called it a recovery estate. The guards called it the island. Lena called it a bad idea. A speedboat carried her from the airstrip to the main dock. Rain began as mist, warm and sharp against her cheeks. On the dock, 6 men waited in black linen shirts, their eyes scanning the horizon instead of her, and at the center of them stood Nico Santoro. Lina recognized him instantly, though no photograph had done him justice. He was not flashy, that made him worse. No gold chains, no loud watch, no smile. Just a tall, controlled man in a charcoal suit, despite the tropical heat. Dark hair swept back from a face carved with old discipline, and eyes so calm they seemed to remove noise from the world. He looked at Lina as if he had known exactly when she would arrive and exactly what she would do before she did it. "Ms. Marlowe," he said. His voice was low, polished, almost soft. The kind of voice that made threats sound like promises. "Mr. Santoro." She stepped off the boat before anyone could help her. "I assume you're the wealthy patient." A flicker of something crossed his mouth. Not quite amusement. "No." "Then take me to whoever is." His gaze held hers. The rain thickened between them. Most men bristled when Lina refused to be impressed. Nico only studied her, and that was somehow more unsettling. "You're direct," he said. "I'm tired. You were told this assignment requires discretion. I was told a lot of vague things by people who enjoy being vague." One of the guards shifted. Nico did not. "The patient is inside," he said. "You will be given a room, medical charts, and everything necessary for care. There is one rule." "Only one?" "You will not enter the lower level of the villa." Lina glanced toward the house, where every window glowed like watchful eyes. "Is that where you keep the bodies?" The guards went still. Nico stepped closer. Not enough to touch her. Enough to make the air change. "If there were bodies in my basement, Ms. Marlowe," he said calmly, "you would not be invited to ask about them." Lina's pulse moved once, hard. She should have been afraid. She was. But beneath the fear was something more dangerous. Curiosity. The villa was more beautiful than any place had a right to be. White stone floors, arched windows, high ceilings with slow-turning fans, oil paintings of stormy seas, a grand staircase curling like a ribbon above a sunken living room. Everything smelled of polished wood, salt air, and expensive flowers. But beauty did not soften the place. Security cameras hid in corners. Men stood outside every major entrance. The windows had retractable steel shutters, thick enough for war. And everywhere, in silver frames and painted portraits, was the same woman, young in some photographs, older in others, always elegant, always unsmiling in a way that made Lina feel watched. "Who is she?" Lina asked as Camille led her down a corridor. Camille did not look at the photo. "Family. Whose?" "Mr. Santoro's." Lina stopped. "Is she dead?" Camille's expression did not change, but her silence answered too slowly. "Your patient is through here." The patient Lina had been allowed to see was not in the basement. He was in the East Wing, in a private suite overlooking the ocean. A man in his 60s named Dr. Elias Venn, pale and feverish after abdominal surgery that had been performed elsewhere, badly and in a hurry. He was conscious enough to complain, which Lina considered a good sign. "He needs antibiotics, wound care, monitoring for sepsis, and a surgeon if this turns," Lina said after examining him. "Why isn't he in a hospital?" "Because hospitals have records," Nico answered from the doorway. Lina had not heard him arrive. That is usually the point, not for him. Dr. Venn turned his face to the window. "I told you she'd be difficult." Nico's eyes remained on Lina. "You said she'd be competent." "I'm both," Lina said. For the first time, Nico almost smiled. Over the next 24 hours, Lina learned the rhythm of the island. Meals appeared without orders. Guards changed posts every 4 hours. Boats came only when approved. The storm grew stronger by the hour, turning the ocean from glass to hammered steel. Nico moved through the villa like its heartbeat. Quiet, controlled, unavoidable. He did not hover, but he was always near when something mattered. When Dr. Venn's fever spiked, Nico appeared with fresh supplies before Lina asked. When the generator failed for 11 seconds, Nico was already on the phone, issuing orders in Italian so calm it chilled her. When Lena stepped onto the terrace to breathe, he was in the shadows, watching the sea. "You always lurk like that?" she asked. "You always walk toward storms?" "I'm from Miami. Storms are relatives." He looked at the dark horizon. "Then you know some relatives should be feared. Is that what you are?" His eyes moved to her. The question hung between them with the rain. "I am what people become when fear fails to kill them," he said. Lena should have found that dramatic. Instead, she believed him. That night, while Dr. Venn slept, Lena wandered the West Gallery with a mug of coffee she did not want. She told herself she was stretching her legs. In truth, she was following the photographs. The woman appeared again and again. In one frame, she stood beside a child on a Miami beach. The child's face turned away. In another, she wore a cream dress on the villa steps, one hand resting over a small swelling beneath the fabric, pregnant. Lena leaned closer. The date on the back corner of the photograph was 29 years old, the same year Lena was born. Something cold unfolded in her stomach. A floorboard creaked behind her. Nico stood at the entrance to the gallery. "You're interested in ghosts," he said. Lena did not step away from the photograph. "I'm interested in why a villa full of armed men needs this many pictures of one dead woman. She wasn't dead when they were taken. That wasn't my question." "No," he said. "It wasn't." The storm flashed white across his face. Lena pointed to the photograph. Was she pregnant? Nico's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "There, a crack. She was many things," he said. "That's a politician's answer. I'm not a politician. No, you own them." A guard at the end of the hall looked sharply toward them. Nico's gaze did not leave Lena's face. "You should be more careful with what you say in my house." "Your house is listening anyway." That time, he did smile. Barely, dangerously. "Yes," he said. "It is." The admission should have made her furious. It did. But when she turned to leave, Nico stepped aside before she reached him, not touching her, not blocking her. It was the restraint that unsettled her most. A man who could command islands had not used his body to intimidate her. He had only made sure she knew he could. At midnight, Lena called her mother from the secure line in her assigned room. The call had to be approved. Recorded, probably. She hated that. She hated more that she needed to hear Rosa's voice. "Mija," Rosa answered, breathless. "I'm okay. Where are you?" "Caribbean. Private island." Silence. Then Rosa asked, too quietly, "What island?" Lena sat up straighter. "Saint Verena." The line filled with static. "Mama, you need to leave." Lena's grip tightened around the phone. "What? Tonight?" "Now. Find a boat, find anyone, and leave." "Mama, what are you talking about?" A sound came through the line, not static this time, a knock. Rosa whispered, "They're here." Lena stood so fast the chair fell behind her. "Who is there?" The call cut. For one frozen second, Lena could not move. Then she ran. She did not care about rules, cameras, or guards. She ran barefoot through marble corridors toward the main staircase, shouting for Nico. He appeared before she reached the living room, already holding a phone, his face colder than she had ever seen it. "My mother," Lena said. "Someone's at her house." "I know." The words hit like a slap. "You know? My men are 2 minutes away. Your men. I put security on her house when you accepted the contract." Lena stared at him. "You were watching my mother?" "Yes. Without telling me." "Yes." She crossed the space between them and shoved him hard in the chest. The guards moved. Nico lifted one hand. They stopped. "You don't get to say yes like that," she snapped. "You don't get to invade my life and call it protection." His eyes burned now, though his voice stayed low. "You were in danger before you knew my name. Because of you? Because of who you are." Lena went still. Outside, thunder cracked over the island. "What does that mean?" Nico's phone buzzed. He answered, listened for 3 seconds, and something lethal settled over his face. "Alive?" he asked. Lena stopped breathing. He listened again, then his eyes closed once, briefly. "Bring her to the safe house." He ended the call. "My mother," Lena whispered. "She's alive, frightened, not injured." Relief nearly broke her knees. Nico stepped closer, but stopped before touching her. "They were not thieves," he said. "They were Calderone men. I don't know what that means." "You will." The hurricane made landfall before dawn. By morning, St. Verena was cut off from the world. No boats, no airstrip, no satellite connection except Nico's encrypted system. The island became a sealed thing under a black sky, surrounded by waves high enough to swallow the dock. Dr. Ven's fever broke, but the villa's tension only sharpened. More guards appeared with rifles. Camille vanished into Nico's office. Men spoke in low voices and stopped when Lena entered. She slept 2 hours and woke to find a red dress hanging in her room. Not seductive, elegant, expensive. The kind of dress that assumed obedience from everyone near it. A note lay on the bed. "Wear this to dinner," N.S. Lena carried the dress downstairs and threw it onto the dining table while Nico was speaking with Camille. "No." Camille went silent. Nico looked at the dress, then at Lena. "It wasn't a request." "Then you should have hired someone easier to buy. You already accepted my money. For nursing, not costume changes." The room held its breath. Nico dismissed Camille with one glance. When they were alone, he approached Lena slowly. Again, he did not touch her. Again, it made the space between them feel more intimate than contact. "Calderone has eyes on this island," he said. "One of my men is compromised. Possibly more. By tonight, he will know you are here. Then why dress me up? Because if he thinks you are my private nurse, you are leverage." "And if he thinks I'm what?" His eyes dropped for half a second to the red dress, then back to her face. "Mine." The word was quiet. It landed hard. Lena's heart reacted before her anger could. "That is not better. It is safer. For who? For you." She laughed once, without humor. "You want me to pretend to be your lover during a mafia hurricane dinner because someone may be spying on us?" "Yes." "You're insane." "No," Nico said. "I'm prepared." "And what am I?" His expression shifted. For one moment, the cold man looked almost tired. "Unfortunately," he said, "you are important." The fake dinner took place beneath chandeliers that swayed in the storm. Lena wore the red dress because her mother was in a safe house protected by Nico's men, because rival killers knew her name, and because the island now felt like a chessboard where she had been placed before she understood the game. Nico wore black. Of course he did. He stood when she entered. Every man in the room looked at her, then looked away. Nico's gaze moved over her once, not greedily, not softly, but with a restraint so intense it felt like a confession he refused to make. "You look angry," he said. "I dressed for the occasion." He offered his hand. She stared at it. "This is for the cameras," he murmured. "Where are they?" "Everywhere." Lena placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, steady, possessive without pressure. A warning passed through her body. She told herself it was fear. Dinner was theater. Nico seated Lena at his right side like a queen beside a warlord. Camille watched from the far end. Guards moved like shadows. The storm screamed against the shutters. Halfway through the meal, Nico leaned toward Lena and brushed his mouth near her ear. Anyone watching would think intimacy, but his words were all danger. "The man pouring wine is not mine." Lena's blood chilled. Across the table, a server with calm hands filled Nico's glass. "What do you want me to do?" she whispered. "Smile." She turned her face slightly toward Nico and forced a smile that felt like a blade between her teeth. The server moved toward her glass. Nico reached across her, took the glass before the man could pour, and drank from it himself. The server's eyes flickered, so did Nico's. Then the world erupted. Nico shoved Lena down as the window behind them exploded inward. Not from wind. Gunfire. Glass rained across the table. Men shouted. The chandeliers swung wild, throwing fractured light over marble and bloodless fear. Nico covered Lena with his body. One arm locked over her head, his gun already in his hand. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, slow and violent. "Stay down," he said. A guard fired toward the shattered window. Another dragged Camille behind a pillar. The false server pulled a knife and lunged. Nico shot him once without looking away from Lena. The sound cracked through her bones. She had seen death in hospitals. She had watched men bleed out under fluorescent lights. But this was different. This was death obeying a command. Nico lifted her in one motion and carried her behind the overturned table as more bullets tore through the room. "I can walk," she snapped, shaking. "I'm aware." "Then put me down." "No." A bullet struck the marble inches from his shoulder. He did not flinch. His hand tightened at her waist. Something inside Lena twisted. Fear, fury, and a terrible certainty that if the entire villa collapsed, Nico Santoro would stand between her and every falling stone. When the gunfire stopped, 3 attackers were down, 2 guards injured, and the hurricane was roaring through the broken window like the island itself wanted inside. Nico knelt in front of Lena. "Are you hit?" "No." He scanned her face, her arms, her neck. His hand rose toward a cut near her temple, then stopped before touching her. The restraint again. That impossible restraint. Lena caught his wrist. His eyes snapped to hers. "You're bleeding," she said. A dark stain spread across his upper arm. "It's nothing. I decide that." For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then Nico let her lead him to the medical room. She cleaned the wound in silence. He sat on the exam table, shirt sleeve torn, tattoos visible along his forearm, black and gray ink of saints, daggers, roses, and names hidden in shadow. The man who had just killed to protect her now sat perfectly still under her hands. "You knew they would try tonight," she said. "I suspected. And you used me as bait." His jaw tightened. "No, don't lie to me. I used the idea of you," he said. "Not you. That distinction probably comforts men like you." His eyes darkened. "No part of tonight comforts me." Lena pressed gauze too hard against his wound. He did not react. "You brought me here because of my mother, didn't you?" "I brought you here because Dr. Venn needed a trauma nurse." "And?" Silence. She leaned closer. "And?" The storm rattled the walls. Nico looked at her with something like regret. "And because I needed to know if Calderone had found you." The room seemed to tilt. "Found me?" Before he could answer, the lights failed. The villa went black. Backup alarms pulsed red through the medical room. Downstairs, somewhere beneath them, a woman screamed. Not in pain, in terror. Lena turned toward the sound. Nico moved first, blocking the door. "No." That came from below. His face became stone. "You heard nothing. I'm a nurse. You are alive because I keep certain doors closed. And someone down there may be dying because you do." She tried to move around him. He caught her arm. Not hard, but enough. The contact shocked them both. His hand was warm around her skin. His thumb rested against her pulse, and Lena saw the exact second he felt how fast her heart was beating. His voice lowered. "Do not make me your enemy, Lena." She looked up at him. "You did that when you put cameras in my life." Something flickered through his eyes. Pain, maybe. Then he released her. The scream did not come again. That night, Lena did not sleep. The villa shifted around her like a living conspiracy. Wind screamed. Metal shutters banged. Guards shouted orders into radios. Somewhere deep below, machines hummed. At 3:17 a.m., Lena opened her bedroom door and found the hallway empty, not unguarded. Empty. That was worse. She followed the sound she had memorized, the low mechanical hum beneath the floor. Past the West Gallery, past the photographs, past the staircase where moonlight should have been, but only storm shadow remained. At the end of a service corridor, the locked elevator stood open. Inside, the panel glowed red. Lower level. Lena knew it was a trap. She stepped inside anyway. The elevator descended too smoothly. When the doors opened, she smelled antiseptic. Not rot, not prison, care. The basement was not a dungeon. It was a private hospital, hidden under marble and storm water. Generators, oxygen tanks, surgical lights, a pharmacy cabinet, a nurse's station, staffed by no one. At the end of the corridor, 2 guards lay unconscious, not dead, zip-tied with their own restraints. Someone else had already breached the lower level. Lena grabbed a metal IV pole and moved forward. The patient's room was open. The woman in the bed turned her head, older than in the photographs. Thinner, her dark hair streaked with silver, her face still beautiful in a haunted, aristocratic way. Her eyes locked on Lena. Tears filled them instantly. "Lucia?" the woman whispered. Lena's throat closed. "My name is Lena." The woman trembled. No, he changed it." She tried to sit up, panic rising. "They said you died." Lena moved to her bedside automatically. "You need to stay still." "My baby," the woman breathed. The words struck too deep. Lena reached for the chart at the foot of the bed. Patient, Evangeline Roche. Status, protected. Neurological trauma. Restricted access by order of N. Santoro. A sound came from the corner. Lena turned. On the wall behind the medical monitors was a board covered in photographs, not of Evangeline, of Lena. Lena outside Mercy General. Lena helping Rosa into a clinic. Lena at a grocery store. Lena sitting in her car with her head on the steering wheel after a night shift. Lena laughing as a child in front of the little pink house. Hundreds of photographs. A lifetime of surveillance. Her stomach lurched. "What is this?" she whispered. Evangeline reached toward her with a shaking hand. "I tried to keep you hidden," she said. "I tried." Behind them, a gun clicked. Lena turned. Camille Voss stood in the doorway holding a pistol. "I really hoped you wouldn't come down here," Camille said. Lena moved between Camille and Evangeline. "You work for Nico." Camille's smile was sad. "I work for survival." The hurricane shook dust from the ceiling. Camille's gun remained steady. "Massimo Calderone has ships outside the reef," she said. "By morning, this island is gone. But if I deliver Evangeline and the daughter, my family lives." "The daughter," Lena repeated. Camille's eyes softened with pity. "Oh, sweetheart, you still don't know." Then Nico's voice came from behind her. "She knows enough," Camille spun. Nico stood at the end of the hall, pistol raised, soaked in red emergency light. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Camille grabbed Lena and pressed the gun to her ribs. Nico's entire face changed. Not panic, not fear. Something far more dangerous. Dependence. "Let her go," he said. Camille's hand shook. "Put down the gun." "No." "Nico." "I said no." The coldness in his voice could have frozen the hurricane. But his eyes were on Lena. Only Lena. Camille pressed the gun harder. "You always think you can protect everyone by controlling the board." Nico stepped closer. "I can. You failed Evangeline." "Yes. You failed the child." His gaze flickered. "Yes. You'll fail this one too." Nico's voice dropped. "Not while I'm breathing." Lena felt Camille's attention shift toward him for half a second. Half a second was enough in trauma. Lena drove her elbow back into Camille's ribs and twisted away. The gun fired. The bullet struck the monitor behind Evangeline, exploding sparks into the air. Nico moved like violence given shape. He crossed the corridor, disarmed Camille, and pinned her against the wall with one hand at her throat. Not choking, holding, his voice was calm enough to be terrifying. "Who else?" Camille laughed, breathless. "Everyone who was tired of dying for your secrets." The lights flickered. An explosion boomed somewhere above. The villa shook. Nico looked toward the ceiling, then at Lena. "We're out of time." "You lied to me," she said. "Yes." "All of this, my mother, the job, the money. You knew who I was." "Yes." The honesty hurt worse than a lie. "Who am I?" Evangeline sobbed softly behind her. Nico's eyes held Lena's as the storm raged over them. "Your name was Lucia Roche," he said. "You were born on this island 29 years ago. Evangeline is your mother. Calderone killed your father and tried to kill both of you, because your birth made you heir to the Roche Shipping Trust, the legal face of 3 mafia empires." Lena could not breathe. "My mother is Rosa." "Rosa saved you," he said. "She took you from the fire and disappeared into witness protection. She raised you, Because Evangeline begged her to. The world Lena had built inside herself cracked down the center. No, I'm sorry. No. Nico stepped closer, and this time she stepped back. The movement landed like a wound between them. He stopped immediately. Good. Let it hurt him. You brought me here to what? She demanded. Confirm the bloodline? Use me in an inheritance war? His silence told her enough. Lena laughed once, broken. That's why Dr. Venn is here. He's not your patient. He's hers. He was Evangeline's physician before the attack. He was the only one who could prove what happened. And me? You were never supposed to be exposed. But I was supposed to be watched. Yes. Owned. His voice sharpened. Never. You dressed me like I belonged to you. To keep men from treating you like prey. You don't get to decide the difference. For once, Nico had no answer. Above them, gunfire erupted. Not a few shots. A wave. Calderone had reached the villa. Nico's men fell back through the corridors as the island became war under hurricane glass. The next hour was a blur of alarms, bloodless terror, and impossible choices. Lena helped move Evangeline from the basement bed into a reinforced wheelchair, while Nico directed his men through a hidden passage beneath the villa. Dr. Venn, pale but stubborn, insisted on walking. Camille was restrained and left under guard, though her last look at Lena held something like apology. They moved through an underground tunnel carved into volcanic rock. The tunnel walls shook with every explosion above. Evangeline clutched Lena's hand, as if letting go would erase her. My baby, she kept whispering. Lena wanted to pull away. She did not. She hated Nico for the truth. She hated herself more for the part of her that still searched for him in every flash of light, needing to know he was alive. At the tunnel's midpoint, the group stopped before a steel door. Nico entered a code. The door opened into a chamber filled with black cases, passports, emergency supplies, and walls of monitors showing every corner of the island. On one screen, Calderone men moved through the ruined dining room. On another, flames spread across the dock. On a third, a gray-haired man in a white suit stood beneath the broken front entrance, dry under the shelter of armed men despite the hurricane. Massimo Calderone. He looked at one of the cameras and smiled. Then he lifted a radio. Nico's radio crackled. Niccolo, Calderone's voice said, warm and monstrous. Bring me the nurse, and I'll let the old ghosts keep breathing. Nico took the radio. No. One word. So predictable. You came to my island during a hurricane. Predictability is not your strength. Calderone laughed. You always did confuse property with loyalty. Your guards are already selling you. Your lawyer sold you. The girl will sell you when she understands what you did. Nico's eyes moved to Lena. She looked away. Calderone continued. Give me Lucia Roche, and I will spare the woman who raised her. Lena went cold. Nico's face did not change, but the room felt suddenly airless. Rosa. Calderone had found the safe house. Lena grabbed the radio from Nico. If you touch my mother, which one? Calderone asked gently. The words gutted her. Nico took the radio back before Lena could speak. You have 10 seconds to leave my island, he said. Or, Nico looked at the monitors, at the villa, at the empire built in stone above them. Then his gaze returned to Lena. Or I burn everything you came for. He ended the transmission. Lena stared at him. What does that mean? It means the island was never just a home. Dr. Venn closed his eyes. Nico. Lena looked between them. What is under this place? Inside were ledgers, drives, legal seals, old passports, and a bloodline document bearing Evangeline's name. The Roche Trust controls shipping routes, ports, shell companies, political accounts, he said. Enough to crown whoever holds it. And you kept it. I kept it from Calderone. You kept it from me. His eyes met hers. Yes. There it was again. The brutal truth. No excuse soft enough to hide behind. Lena's voice dropped. Was any of this real? Nico's expression shifted, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked young, not innocent, never innocent. But wounded, the danger was real. That's not what I asked. He stepped toward her. The hurricane, the guns, the burning dock, All of it faded into the narrow space between them. "No," he said quietly. "That is not what you asked." He lifted his hand, as if to touch her face. Stopped, his fingers curled slowly into a fist. "I have spent years protecting a woman who begged me to find her daughter," he said. "I watched you from a distance because anyone who stood too close to you became a target. I told myself you were a responsibility, a promise, a name in a file." His voice lowered. "Then you walked onto my dock and looked at me like I was a man, not a myth. You made me angry. You made me careful. You made me want things I had no right to want." Lena's heart hurt. "I don't trust you. I know. I might never trust you. I know." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" His eyes did not move from hers. "Because Calderone is right about one thing," Nico said. "You could destroy me now." The tunnel shook again. A guard shouted from the outer passage. "They found the south entrance." Nico turned back into the boss. Instantly. He ordered Evangeline and Dr. Venn through the evacuation tunnel toward the storm bunker near the old chapel. He sent 2 loyal guards with them. Then he took a rifle from the wall and handed Lena a small pistol. She stared at it. "I'm a nurse. I know. I save people. Then save yourself if I fail." She hated the way her hands closed around it. Nico moved to leave. Lena caught his sleeve. He stopped, as if her touch had more power than any gun in the room. "My mother," she said. His face softened only at the edges. "My men are moving her again." Calderone bluffed, but not completely. He knows where she was. "You promise?" A dangerous stillness entered him. "I promise you this," Nico said. "If Massimo Calderone reaches Rosa Marlowe, I will make every man who helped him wish the ocean had taken them first." It should not have comforted her. It did. The battle for St. Verena moved from marble halls to rain-lashed gardens. Lena had never seen anything like it. Black-clad men moving through sheets of water, muzzle flashes in the palms, lightning revealing statues, broken glass, bodies crawling for cover. The villa that had looked untouchable now bled light and smoke into the storm. Nico fought like he had been born without panic. He did not waste movement, did not shout unless necessary, did not kill for pleasure, only with terrifying efficiency. And always, somehow, he knew where Lena was. When an attacker came through the chapel passage behind her, Nico appeared from the rain and pulled her behind him before she saw the knife. When falling stone trapped one guard under a broken arch, Nico ordered him carried out, though bullets struck the wall around them. When Lena ran into the open to reach a wounded housekeeper, Nico cursed in Italian and covered her with his body as shots tore through the garden hedge. "You do not run toward Gunfire," he growled. "You do not tell nurses where to run." His eyes flashed. Even then, soaked in rain and danger, the tension between them burned. A confession neither had time to make. They reached the old chapel near the cliff just before dawn. It was small, white, and half swallowed by vines, built by some forgotten owner who must have believed beauty could bargain with the sea. Inside, Evangeline waited with Dr. Venn, Rosa, on a secure video line from a second safe house in the Keys. The sight of Rosa's face on the monitor broke Lena. "Mama," Rosa cried silently when she saw her. "I'm sorry," Rosa whispered. "I wanted to tell you." Lena pressed her hand to the screen. "Why didn't you?" "Because the truth had men attached to it," Evangeline sobbed behind her. For one impossible moment, Lena stood between 2 mothers. One who gave her life, one who saved it. The emotional weight nearly brought her to her knees. Nico stood by the chapel doors, giving her privacy he had not earned but somehow understood. Rosa looked past Lena toward him. Her expression hardened. "You promised me she would never be pulled into this." Nico's voice was quiet. "I failed." "Yes," Rosa said. "You did." He accepted the judgment without defense. That mattered to Lena more than she wanted it to. Before anyone could speak again, Calderone's voice echoed from outside the chapel. How touching. Nico moved instantly, pushing Lena behind him. The chapel doors flew open. Massimo Calderone entered with 4 men and a smile that belonged nowhere near a church. Rain dripped from his white suit. His silver hair was perfect. His eyes were bright with the cruelty of men who had mistaken patience for holiness. "Nico Santoro," he said. "Still hiding women in beautiful rooms and calling it honor." Nico raised his gun. Calderone's men raised theirs. Lina felt the entire chapel hold its breath. Calderone looked at her. "Lucia Roche," he said. "You have your mother's eyes. My name is Lena. Names are paperwork. Blood is empire. I don't want your empire. No one ever does until they see what it buys." Nico's voice cut in. "You're leaving without her." Calderone laughed. "You are outnumbered, betrayed, and standing in a chapel on an island I already own. You don't own it. Not yet." Nico's thumb moved slightly over a small black device in his hand. Lina noticed. So did Calderone. His smile faded. "What did you do?" Nico looked at Lina. Not for permission, for goodbye. Her heart lurched. "Nico." He pressed the device. Far below the chapel, deep beneath the villa, the island answered. Explosions rolled through the earth. Not one. Many. Controlled. Sequential. Devastating. Through the broken chapel doors, Lina saw fire erupt along the villa's lower foundation. Then the west wing. Then the dock. Flames climbed through hurricane rain, orange against gray dawn, consuming marble, ledgers, servers, vaults, secrets. Nico Santoro burned his private island. Calderone screamed, not in grief, but greed. "No!" Nico moved in the distraction. The chapel became chaos. Shots cracked. Glass shattered. Rosa screamed through the video link. Evangeline cried out. Lina dropped to the floor beside Dr. Venn, pulling him behind the stone altar. Nico disarmed the first man, shot the second, slammed the third into the chapel wall, and took a bullet across the ribs from the fourth. Lina saw him stagger. Her body moved before thought. She ran toward him. Calderone grabbed her from behind and pressed a knife to her throat. Everything stopped. Nico froze with his gun aimed at Calderone's head. Blood darkened his shirt. Rain blew through the chapel doors behind him. Fire roared in the distance. His island, his empire, his secrets burned under the hurricane sky. Calderone held Lina tighter. "You will lower the gun," he said, "or I open the air from ear to ear." Nico's face emptied. That was when Lina understood what real fear looked like on him. Not panic, not pleading, silence. His hand lowered. "Nico, don't," Lina whispered. His eyes stayed on hers. "I can rebuild an empire," he said softly. "I cannot rebuild you." The words entered her like a vow. Calderone smiled. Finally, a price high enough. Then Evangeline stood. Not fully, not steadily, but enough. With Dr. Venn's help, the woman the world believed dead rose from behind the altar and pointed a shaking gun at Massimo Calderone. "You killed my husband," she said. "You stole my child's name. You hunted women because men were too cowardly to face you." Calderone's grip loosened for one stunned second. Lina dropped. Nico fired. Calderone fell against the chapel doors and slid into the rain, his white suit staining dark beneath the storm. No triumph followed. Only thunder. Only breath. Only the sound of a burning island behind them. Nico crossed to Lina and fell to his knees in front of her. This time, he touched her without stopping himself. His hands framed her face, careful despite the blood on his shirt, searching for injury, proof of life, forgiveness he did not ask for. "Lina." She was shaking too hard to answer. He pulled back instantly, as if her silence hurt him. "I'm sorry," he said, not elegant, not controlled, just raw. "For bringing you here, for watching you, for deciding your safety mattered more than your truth, for every choice I made without giving you one." Lina looked at the fire beyond the chapel. "You burned it all. Yes, the money, the files, the empire. Not all of it." She looked at him. His eyes were on her. The part that mattered is breathing. For a long moment she hated him. For the lies, for the manipulation, for the way he had stepped into her life like fate with a gun. And she loved him a little, maybe, for burning the world rather than handing her to it. That terrified her most. The evacuation came at sunrise. A helicopter broke through the thinning edge of the storm and landed on the chapel lawn as St. Verena burned behind them. Black smoke rose into a pink Caribbean dawn. Rain turned to mist. The sea, exhausted from violence, glittered like nothing terrible had happened. Lena helped Evangeline onto the helicopter. Then Rosa appeared on Nico's secure tablet, safe and crying and furious enough to live forever. "I am still your mother," Rosa told Lena. Lena pressed the tablet to her chest. "You're the reason I know what the word means." Nico stood apart from them, one hand pressed to his wounded ribs, refusing help until everyone else boarded. Typical. Infuriating. Lena walked to him with a medical kit. "Sit down." He looked at her. There was blood on his shirt, ash in his hair, and grief in the elegant lines of his face. "I can stand. I didn't ask." Something almost warm moved through his eyes. He sat on the chapel step. She treated the bullet graze in silence, while the helicopter blades beat the smoke into spirals around them. His body was still under her hands, but not cold now. Controlled, yes. Dangerous, always. But human. "I won't ask you to forgive me," he said. "Good. I won't ask you to stay." Her hands paused. "That's new." His mouth curved faintly, then faded. "I have owned too much in my life. Houses, routes, favors, fear." He looked at the burning villa. "It cost me less than wanting you safe." Lena wrapped the bandage tighter than necessary. He accepted the pain. "You don't get devotion because you destroyed evidence and shot bad men," she said. "I know. You don't get my trust because you were less monstrous than Calderone. I know. You don't get to decide where my life goes next." His eyes met hers. "No," he said. "I don't." The helicopter pilot shouted that they had to go. Lena stood. Nico did too, slower. For a second, they faced each other with ash falling between them like black snow. Then he held out an envelope. "What is this?" "The deed to your mother's house. Paid in full. In Rosa Marlowe's name. Not yours. Not mine." Lena stared at him. "You did that before I found out?" "Yes." "Why?" His answer was quiet. "Because I knew what home meant to someone who almost lost one before she could remember it." Her throat tightened. She took the envelope. Their fingers brushed. This time, neither pulled away quickly. 3 months later, Lena returned to Miami with 2 mothers, 1 restored house, and a name she still did not know how to carry. The newspapers called it a Caribbean crime scandal. The government called it an ongoing investigation. The gossip channels called her the mafia nurse, the hidden heiress, the woman who made Nico Santoro burn his island. Lena called it survival. Evangeline recovered slowly in a private rehabilitation clinic under federal protection. Rosa visited every day and complained about the coffee. The 2 women did not become family overnight. Life was not that simple. But sometimes Lena would find them sitting together in the garden, one telling the truth, the other forgiving only what she could. Nico disappeared from public life. That was what the news said. But every night, a black SUV parked across from Lena's hospital when her shift ran late. Every week, an anonymous donation appeared for patients who could not pay. Every time Lena walked to her car in the rain, she felt watched. Not trapped, guarded. One evening, after a brutal shift, she found Nico sitting on the hood of her old car outside Mercy General. Black suit, no umbrella, rain soaking through his shirt as if he had never learned to come in from storms. "You look terrible," she said. He stood. "You always know what to say to a man. What are you doing here? Waiting. For what?" His eyes held hers across the rain. "For you to decide whether I leave." Lena looked at the man who had lied to her, protected her, used her, saved her, burned an island for her, and finally done the one thing no one expected from a man like Nico Santoro. He had given her a choice. Behind him, Miami traffic hissed over wet pavement. Neon signs blurred in puddles. The hospital lights glowed white against the night. Ordinary life moved around them, unaware that a dangerous man was standing in the rain, with his heart held like a weapon he no longer knew how to use. Lena stepped closer. "I'm still angry. I know. I still don't trust you completely." I know. If you ever lie to me like that again, I walk away." His voice was low. "Then I will spend the rest of my life telling you truths that frighten me." Her heart ached. "You're still dangerous." "Yes." "You're still impossible." "Yes." "You still think protection is the same as love." His eyes softened with something dark and devoted. "No," Nico said. "You taught me the difference." Lena looked at him for a long time. Then she took his hand. Not because all was forgiven. Not because darkness had become light. Because storms did not end by pretending they had never existed. They ended when someone brave enough stood in the wreckage and chose what could still be saved. Nico's fingers closed around hers, like a vow he was afraid to break. For once, he did not pull her closer. He waited. So Lena stepped into him herself. The kiss was gentle at first, almost impossible after everything they had survived. Rain slid between them. His hand rose to her face, careful now, asking in the only silent language he had ever known. She answered by holding on. Across the street, the black SUV headlights dimmed. Above them, thunder rolled away from Miami toward the open sea. And somewhere far beyond the city, beyond the burned bones of St. Verena Island, the old Mafia world learned a new truth. Nico Santoro had once burned an empire to protect a secret. Now he would burn anything to protect the woman who had become his home.